Palacio de la Madrasa. Up to the first point which I saw the church when I was looking for the buses. Same street I was on earlier, Via de Colón. This street was torn down originally in the early 20th century, ripping through a lot of antique old convents and other historical buildings to make this swath of French architecture that we see, or at least some of which we see. The rest of it is just junk. It is Columbus, and he's actually, to quote Rick, unfurling a long contract of the terms of his. Isabella wanted money. I mean, to spread Catholicism. Columbus wanted money. He died disillusioned, and she thought he was going to find India and China, but she didn't. She still lucked out like a bandit, which is probably the best definition of what the Spanish did. And this is Plaza Nueve, which Rick defines as the center of activity here in Granada. And from this square you can radiate to other areas like the Alhambra and elsewhere. But anyway, I just find it to be a heavily tourist restaurant. Tapas are 3 times expensive elsewhere in the country. So Justice, and a small unnamed church. Apparently the only thing of real significance here are the Negros Pieds, which are the Blackfeet. That refers to the hippies that hang out here with their dogs and guitars and live in caves, apparently above the Gypsy Caves in Sacromonte. This is actually the Church of Santa Ana. Going to the left of the church with the Alhambra poking up just a little bit from that corner. We'll go down here along Paseo de los Tristes. This, I believe, is the river that flows underneath Calle de Catalica. This route used to be the route of the funeral processions going out to the cemetery that was beyond this. Side of a mosque, obviously, that replaces a minaret that once stood. And we'll shoot up there and see if we can get a closer look at that Moorish Muslim ceramic artwork, again done by Muslims in the Muslim style, which is an irony considering how they demolished a mosque in the first place. One could argue they did it just because they needed the space. Pretty little setting, somewhat away from the crowds. Maybe I'll sit in that outside cafe and have a agua con gas. Pleasant little intersection of life. And up there, the Alhambra. And just below the Alhambra is an old 11th century nub of a bridge that used to give access to the Alhambra. If we look closely at the bottom, we can see 2 slits. You can see it continues on up further. One was for a portcullis to drop down and prevent access up into Alhambra by the river route, and the other was a door to, basically it was a dam, to like a irrigation dam to control the water level. So they dam up the river with that one door and then release it quickly, allowing the water to go down through the river here underneath these bridges and flush out all the debris in the river. And there are the 2 little bridges. First one is where I had something to drink. Below that, one of the Faro caps. And here directly across from it is the remains of another Muslim hammam, or bath. inside one of the rooms. Probably each of these little rooms had a function. Excellent condition. How interestingly similar this is to the inside of a mosque. And I'm guessing that these different levels that we see here allowed for drainage of water. Of course, the ceiling, notice the different designs. The, call it a cupcake design in the center, and then the less elaborate cupcake designs to the sides. Ah, there's the remains of some tile work. Kind of neat. Don't know what this would be unless it is just a channel under which water ran, giving us a little bit of a hint kind of also of how the Romans did it. A little bit of an idea of what the decor in here might have been like. And a pretty marble floor this looks like. You can imagine this thing fished down, it would have been very pretty. Here's some more fine detail on the column. Imagine it was all fresh and new. Here a drawing of how it might have looked. There's some of the Blackfeet living up to their reputation. Dogs looking filthy. This is apparently the church of San Pedro, the parish church of the Sacramonte Gypsies. And then below it is this big green swath that runs up through the river that looks like it's very pretty and once had an actual use for people to actually be down in there. But this is the Casa de las Chirimías, a viewpoint tower given the events and celebrations carried out next to the Esplanade near this river, the Douro River. And this was a center of celebrations and events that would be judged, apparently. Now it's a pretty little spot near the river underneath Alhambra where you can have dinner. Here's a pretty little bridge right next to the casa. You wonder what the areas behind those arches were used for. You can see the windows going into. Well, they're an abandoned building for sale. Looks like it would be prime property, but exactly for what, I don't know. Maybe a hotel if you could compete with everybody else. Art classes filled the square. Trying to work my way back by avoiding tourist areas if I can, looking both for a grocery store and or a local restaurant. Everywhere you go in this city are churches, some that look like they could be quite interesting. This one kind of novel. Can't tell for sure whether it's a church or a fort. And if it's a church, what kind it would be. Okay, so this is mozzarella cheese and cherry tomato slice with, I don't know what the salad or what the spice is, but certainly you could try several things like even oregano for that matter. This is my most elegant tortilla de patatas it's warm and it's got tomatoes and then warm bread also. And this is like a salsa, which is great. So I was wondering if I get anything like that, but this is far more than I expected. And I think this might be something to do with avocado. This is the entrance to, or the front, and then the entrance to the Charles V palace, which was built after he razed the temple or palace or whatever of the Muslims was here before him. I think one small mark of man's step forward in what he thinks is defining civilization is when he can restrain himself from destroying the monuments of the people he conquers.